Madam Chair, we are now live. Good evening. Welcome to tonight. My name is Karen Burdett. I am the Vice Chair of the HPC, and I am acting chair for this evening. I would like to ask the commissioners to introduce themselves for this evening.
Marsha Barnes.
Julie Pelletier.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Mark Clements.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Michael Kine, Historic Preservation Staff.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. This is the May 4th, 2022 Historic Preservation meeting. Just to satisfy our legal requirements, I need to enter the following statement into the record. The commissioners and staff of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission are appointed by the county executive with the confirmation of the county council and are qualified to serve according to the Chapter 24A, Section 24A4B of the Montgomery County Code. Resumes of the commissioners are on file at the Historic Preservation Office and are hereby made a part of the record by reference of all public hearings heard tonight. We will start with our historic area work permits tonight, and I'd like to remind anyone in the audience that if you'd like to testify, you must fill out a speaker form there on the table and give it to the staff before the case is called, please. I open the public record on the historic area work permits. And ask if all the historic area work permits have been duly advertised.
Yes, they were advertised in the April 20th edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. We will start with the expedited historic area work permits and ask if anyone is there who wishes to speak in opposition to cases as they are called out. If not, I will run through these cases and then call for a vote. Oops, wrong one. Okay. Historic area work permit number 1A at 5 Columbia Avenue, Tacoma Park Historic District. Case number 1B at 19801 Georgia Avenue, Brookville. Case number 1C at 5701 Achille Lane, Rockville. Case number 1D at 10408 Montgomery Avenue, Kensington. Case number 1E. Yes, you're going to be testifying, correct? Okay, we will be hearing case number 1D at 10408 Montgomery Avenue, Kensington. Case number 1E at 9220 Damascus Hill Lanes, Damascus. Case 1F at 6812 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case number 1H at 4716 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park. Case number 1I at 1I1 34 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Case number 1 at 1I2 we will be hearing tonight, and that's also at 34 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Case number 1K at 2 East Melrose Street, Chevy Chase.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections to these cases, I move that we approve the following area work permits. Work permit number 988107 at 5 Columbia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 988647 at 19801 Georgia Avenue, Brookville. Hop number 983374 at 5701 Achille Lane, Rockville. Hop number 981848 at 9220 Damascus Hill Lane, Damascus. I am missing a hop number for 1F. I'll come back to that. Hop number 992320 at 6812 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 989504 at 4716 Waverly Avenue, Garrett Park. Hop number 989960 at 2 East Melrose Street, Chevy Chase.
We have one more.
Okay, so is it the first one that's, yeah. And hop number 985, I beg your pardon, 989570 at 34 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase.
Do I have a motion to approve the hops, these hops?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll make a motion to approve the hops.
And a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All of the expedited hops are approved. We will now move on to the cases we're going to hear for tonight. And we will start with case number 1D at 10408 Montgomery Avenue, Kensington.
Madam Chair, we don't have a presentation prepared for this case, but I'll just do a brief overview. It is 10408 Montgomery Ave in Kensington. It is a secondary resource in the Kensington Historic District, which is the equivalent to a non-contributing resource. It is a sort of traditional commercial building constructed in 1975 with a parking lot to the left. It actually is the transition between residential Kensington and commercial Kensington. And the applicant proposes to build an addition to the rear of the existing building and matching details. And the addition will be approximately, let me get those numbers in front of me real quickly, approximately 5,400 square feet on over two floors. So the footprint of the addition will be 2,700 square feet with a new entrance towards the rear. This will eliminate a number of parking spaces on the site. I believe it's 11, but it will not result in an increase in impervious surface on the site. The parapet fenestration pattern and materials will match the existing building, and staff found that the alteration of the building would not have a significant impact on the character of the surrounding district or the resource itself, and recommended approval.
Thank you. I understand there is someone to speak on this case tonight, Ms. Waston. If you'd like to come forward, please, to the desk where the microphones are, and please push the button so you see green, and then state your name and address for the record.
Sandra Wasden, and my address is, can you hear me?
No.
Yeah, you have to sit down.
My name is Sandra Wasden, and my address is 10407 Fawcett Street, Kensington, Maryland.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And so I just learned of the addition yesterday, and just some thoughts that I had wanted to bring forward and have the commission consider reviewing, and is some concerns about the impact of the character that this will have to the character of the Kensington Historic District. And one thought is, and concern is just that while the addition won't be seen if you're standing directly in front of the building, it certainly a few steps to either side you will see that, particularly from the left where there's more open. Anyone walking along the sidewalk there, it's even across the road for quite a distance, it's gonna change the character there. So that's one concern that I had. I also was concerned about the tree line, the existing tree line. Recently, one of the very large trees was taken down, and that may have been necessary, but certainly what we can do to ensure that we maintain at least the level of green that exists, and if there's anything we can do to continue to maintain some amount of green and character as we address this addition. One of those, I don't know if there can be a requirement to ensure that as trees come down, something of similar or of a certain reasonable size is replaced there. And another concern that I had, and this may not be the right place to bring this forward, is just related to storm drain management, that there's just kind of how the water flows there, that this addition may contribute to additional runoff issues.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Wasden or the staff?
I have a question.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Is this on? Where's your house in relation to the building?
My house is the property behind.
Behind, okay.
Mhm.
And which tree, I'm just looking at the site plan now. Where did the big tree come down? Was it on the side of the parking lot, or was it between your property and the subject property?
So it was on their property behind the part where the parking lot ends.
Okay.
It was a really large tree, and I do sometimes understand that sometimes a tree needs to be removed. I wasn't aware that there was an issue with the tree, but that's the tree that I was referring to.
And my last question is, do you have issues now with stormwater, like sheeting off of their parking lot or anything?
Well, the way that the property, the formation of the property, right, it kind of slopes down. So at the back of my yard, there is a certain amount of water, when it rains, it kind of pools at the back there. But I know the neighbors have done a lot of needing to address the pooling issues of water. And the proposed addition, what we're talking about here is just behind that. It's just, there's a lot of runoff coming down that way. I'm not a professional on that anyway, but I do
Right,
think that's something that probably needs to be looked into.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
I have a question for staff and then a question for Ms. Wasden. For staff, I think the mention is that it was within 5 feet of the property line, and that is kind of the closest that the applicant can build. Is that correct? And is there a difference for commercial and residential?
My understanding is that is the minimum setback. Again, DPS's zoning enforcement will do a zoning review as part of this to ensure that everything that's built comports with that.
Right.
But my understanding is that is the maximum allowable space under zoning.
And DPS is also concerned about things like stormwater runoff, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. And then I had a question for you, and that concerns, you're the house immediately to the back, I think you said. So you're in the 1898 house. Is that right?
Yes.
And you mentioned that you only learned about this building project yesterday, and how did you learn about it?
A neighbor had emailed. I did receive the letter. I had been traveling, so I had only just opened it and hadn't had a chance to read through it in order to see which property was being impacted.
But you did receive a letter?
I did receive the letter, yes.
Okay.
I have it with me.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that. Okay. Thank you.
This is Chair Burdett, Vice Chair Burdett. I have a question for staff. Based on the photograph in the report, the property that's come before us is apparently right up on the property line, on to the one side, which I believe is the west side of the property. And I know that this is a zoning question, but are they going to be allowed to build to that property line, or do they have to set back?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
You know, that is a zoning question. But yeah, that's a zoning question, full stop. But there are a number of properties that are built, you know, in the commercial section of Kensington that are built zero lot line. So depending on the zoning, that would be appropriate.
And what's the year that this building under question was built?
1975.
1975. And one other question, this proposal is to take the construction back to within 5 feet of the property line, which is the allowed setback. But won't it impact the view shed of the historic properties, or is it because it's in the backyard of the historic properties and not the street face is why we are not considering that?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, the street presence, if you look at figure 2 of the staff report, that's an oblique view looking at the left side of the building up through the parking lot. I mean, that gives you an indication of how, you know, just extend the view of, you know, that building with that height. It will continue. I did not, you know, because of the existing landscaping and the housing from Fawcett Street, we wouldn't be able to capture that in a photograph. So, I mean, yes, we consider it. It's also a challenge because the two properties directly behind it are built so close to one another in the property line that there's a minimal setback, if you look at figure 1, between the 1918 building and the 1896 house. Viewing from Fawcett Street to the subject property is almost entirely obscured by existing housing.
So it is the view from the street that we would be concerned with,
Right.
not
I mean,
necessarily the backyard.
Right. So I mean, because this is the resource itself is the district. That was what was established. So when we consider the impact of a change, we look at it from the public right-of-way, potentially on all sides. However, you know, we don't, in most analysis, we don't look at how things would be viewed from the back of one property to the back of another. You know, additional consideration can be given by the commissioners, but as far as staff's analysis, that did not factor in.
Okay.
Might-
Yes, Ms. Wasden.
And the view that I'm most concerned about actually is the view from Montgomery Avenue. So if you're walking along Montgomery Avenue, even, I think it's still called Howard as you're like coming from the post office, your view will be impacted because you know, you'll be seeing the building from the side.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Because we will not be deliberating this tonight like it's a preliminary.
I have a question. I think it's for staff. Do we have any power, I don't know if that's the right word, to direct any sort of extra tree cover or landscaping requirements in this?
So, I mean, that would be a condition that is added for some mitigating measure. It should be used to address the impact of the proposal, but, you know, while we're charged to evaluate these in the absence of vegetation, it's certainly something that we consider. Well, but I mean, the mature tree canopy is one of the character defining features of the district. So reinforcing that is certainly something that is advisable and is within the power of the commissioners to add as a condition for approval.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. If you're done, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so this is a HOP application that I'm going to request a motion on the staff recommendation. And we can vote if we agree with, if we want to approve that or not. And if we don't, then I will ask for a motion that would add or revise, that would add a condition to it. Yes.
This is Rebecca Ballo with the staff. Again, I would want to note for the record that because we did not receive any testimony to sign up online, we had indicated to the applicant that their case would be approved out on consent, and they did not need to come tonight. So if the commissioners would want to add a condition, if they feel that there is some mitigating factors, you could, another option could be to defer, to request additional information from the applicant, potentially view shed studies or other things to mitigate what may be a potential condition. Again, the staff did not see that there were any issues with the view sheds or impact to the visual character of the district. However, I feel that in all fairness to the applicant, if that is the way the commission goes, then I would recommend that you consider a deferral. If that's as opposed to adding conditions without the applicant being present to present additional information or to speak to how they feel about that condition. I would note as well that they are losing a number of parking spaces with this, so they may have thoughts as well about the appropriate placement and type of landscaping, losing additional parking spaces, things of that nature. That's only if the commission is considering approval with a condition. I would just like you to consider that as well.
Having listened to the testimony given this evening about the view shed from Montgomery Avenue and looking again at the building, if you extend it farther on, there is limited landscaping facing the street, but I think we had a very well-made point about the perception of just the long building right on the blacktop all the way back to the property line, so that perhaps we should defer this and ask that the applicant return with some more detailed proposal about how they might propose to handle any landscaping in what, as staff noted, is a historic district noted for its tree canopy and greenery.
And if that is the commission's pleasure, then we'll see how the motion goes, and then we will work with the applicant on a future date that will work for them.
So we will still vote on the motion, or we need to make a motion on what is presented to us tonight and vote on that, and if it does not pass.
Well, the commission must make a motion.
Yeah.
On whatever is the commission's pleasure to
So we can make a
approve.
motion to defer.
You may.
Okay. Do I have a motion from somebody about something?
Madam Chair, I would like to move that we defer this application and request that the applicant return with some additional information about how the applicant proposes to handle any landscaping to mitigate the view shed from Montgomery Avenue.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we get Commissioner Clements?
That's a nay for me.
Thank you.
So that is 4 to defer and 1. Okay. I would like to ask staff, since this is being deferred, that when they ask the applicant to come forward with some more information, that they also might check into their stormwater management or zoning at the same time.
I will pass those concerns on.
Thank you. On to the next case we're hearing tonight. We will be hearing case number 1G at 19 Montgomery Avenue, Tacoma Park. And we do have a speaker tonight for that case, and it's Mr. Richard Vitullo representing the client, the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be presenting staff's recommendations tonight. So as you noted, this is 19 Montgomery Avenue, Tacoma Park, an outstanding resource within the Tacoma Park Historic District. It's a bungalow-style house, circa 1910s to 20s. And the proposal in front of you tonight is for after-the-fact basement-level window and door alterations, alterations to an existing rear addition, enclosure of an attached rear garage, new deck construction, front porch handrail installation, and foundation reparging. The applicable guidelines are Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A8, the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. And a little background, the applicant appeared before you at the March 23rd HPC meeting for a preliminary consultation regarding unpermitted after-the-fact alterations at the property. In addition to the work items in this application, the preliminary consultation proposal included construction of a screen porch addition, front door replacement, and creation of an after-the-fact parking pad in the front yard. And these items have since been remediated and/or removed from the application. At the preliminary consultation, the HPC's comments included, or feedback included, concerns were expressed regarding the compatibility of the unpermitted work items as well as the proposed new work items, finding that they would impact the historic integrity of the building if approved. The commissioners asked for more complete code-compliant plans, and specific concerns were raised about proposed bedrooms in the basement with no egress. There were concerns about the materials and style of the unpermitted and proposed new windows. The proposed new windows at that point were to be double hung with no divided light, and that was found to be inconsistent and incompatible with the existing. There were concerns about the compatibility of the shed roof form of the proposed new screen porch, with the commission finding that it needed to be more compatible with the existing roof forms and reflective of the historic house. The commission stressed that all proposed detailing is important and needs to be considered carefully, as this property is an outstanding resource. The commission stated that they would not approve the application as proposed. Although much of the unpermitted work had already been completed, the commission stressed that the applicant needed to present a compatible and appropriate proposal as if no work had been done. And finally, the commission stressed that the applicant should return with a complete, accurate, and approvable application, that the application will either be approved or denied, and that there will be no additional preliminary consultations for this project. So I'm going to go through several photos here from my site visit back in January 2022, just showing some of the unpermitted work that was before you at the prelim. So here we're looking at the existing rear addition where new beadboard siding and T111 siding had been added. And we can see that again looking from the rear. We can also see new basement level fenestration, the new single light casement windows, both on the addition and the basement level of the historic house. A close-up of the addition windows, close-up of the beadboard siding, historic house basement level windows, and this is on the east or left side of the house at the basement level. And this is a window well, which was in the previous proposal at the frontmost window on the basement level on the east or left side. So the applicant has returned with a HOP application responding to the commission's comments, and they have included the following revisions. Code-compliant floor plans and elevations have been submitted. The applicant proposes to replace the unpermitted, incompatible basement-level fenestration, including the egress window and window well, which I just showed you, with compatible fenestration, and this would include 6/1 double-hung wood STL windows, which take their material and style cues from the historic house. The previously proposed screen porch has been removed from the application with a wood deck proposed in its place. The applicant proposes to replace the unpermitted, incompatible beadboard and T111 siding on the addition with compatible fiber cement siding. So these are the plans that were before you previously at the preliminary consultation, and specific concerns were raised, if you can see the cursor in front of you, about bedroom 3. Some of the unpermitted work that staff discovered in January was a window well and new egress window here on the right or left side. That part of the project was remediated before the applicants came before you at the prelim. So there were concerns about having a bedroom in that location with no code-compliant egress. So the revised floor plan shows storage in that area. So we're down to 3 bedrooms in the basement. And this is the proposed screen porch, looking at it from the rear and from the east or left side. And this was in the preliminary consultation proposal. And this is what they're now proposing in its place, just a simple wood deck. New work items in the current application include replacement of one original dilapidated basement window on the west or right elevation of the historic house with a new 6/1 double-hung wood SDL window to match the historic. Addition of a 4th window at the basement level on the east or left side of the historic house, and this will be behind the chimney for egress purposes. The proposed window will be a wood casement window with permanently affixed interior and exterior muntins and internal spacer bars to match the appearance of the proposed double-hung windows, and due to the grade, a window well will not be required for this window. All other existing or original windows and doors will be restored. New steel handrails with steel balusters are proposed on both sides of the front porch steps. The existing CMU house foundation is proposed to be reparched. So staff supports the applicant's proposal as revised, finding that it responds appropriately to your feedback. The proposal will not remove or alter character-defining features or materials of the subject property and/or surrounding streetscape per standards number 2 and 9. The proposed new deck is in the appropriate location at the rear of the historic house where it will not be visible from the right-of-way. In accordance with standard 10, the deck will be constructed in a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the property and its environment would be unimpaired. Additionally, the proposed alterations are generally compatible with the resource's original design, and they are sympathetic with the existing architectural character, massing, height, setback, and materials of the house per the guidelines. So again, staff's recommendation is that the application be approved. And with that, I can take any questions you might have for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner
Could I
Barnes?
just ask if you would bring up the photo you had at the front of the house again, please?
So I think this is the photo you're referring to.
This is the photo. Thank
Okay,
you.
I do have others of the front if we need to pull those up there at the back of the presentation.
I was just looking at the steps again, so thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Pelletier, question for staff?
Was there an existing railing on the front ever, since you've been working on this project?
There is no evidence that there was a railing there. However, I believe it's being proposed for code compliance, noting, again, that there isn't one there now, and there's no evidence that there ever was.
Okay, so I'm just wondering about the steel versus wood, if at some point there was a wood railing, but it doesn't sound like there's any evidence for that. Okay, thanks.
And I just want to note, from staff's perspective, when there is no evidence of an existing railing or a previously existing railing, in a situation like this, staff would often recommend a minimal metal railing because it's less obtrusive.
This is Vice Chair Burdett. If they wanted to put a rail in because it's not in the current proposal, they would have to come back, wouldn't they? Is it in the proposal?
It's in, but it's.
Oh, yes, it's in the current proposal.
It's in, but it's steel, which sort of gave me pause. Just thinking that if it was originally wood, that we would want it to be wood, but it doesn't sound like there's any evidence of what was there originally.
Any other questions for staff? No. Okay, then we're going to move on to the speaker for tonight is Richard Vitullo, who is representing the client. Mr. Vitullo, would you please identify yourself and your address and your relationship to the applicant?
I'm Rick Vitullo. I'm the architect that submitted the application for this project. And I'm not sure what else to present. I mean, I presented this last time. There's nothing new beyond we what Michael presented, we changed the screen porch to a wood deck, and changed the siding on the rear addition, whatever that addition is. It was called a garage. I'm not sure if it was a garage, but the exterior finish on that was changed from beadboard and T111 to fiber cement siding. And all of the problematic window changes have been the original changes that were aluminum clad. Mostly single light windows were changed to wood, painted wood, with a 6/1 mullion pattern. And the front railing, it's a concrete stair. It's a masonry porch railing, if you will. I can't imagine it was ever a wood railing, wood handrail there. If there was ever a handrail at all, I'm not even sure if there was a handrail. So we proposed steel. And that's really essentially it. I mean, one of the problems for the egress for the bedrooms was that it was going through a screen porch, the rear first floor bedroom, which was not code compliant. So that was another reason to remove the screen porch part of the design. We just left the deck. That's really all I have to say. I mean, this has been hashed over for many meetings. There's really nothing new beyond what I just mentioned.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions?
Do any commissioners have questions for Mr. Vitullo? Commissioner Burns?
Mr. Vitullo, I know you've done a lot of work in this area, and I just wanted to confirm, since I'm not an architect, but I think now all of the windows the egress windows are now all code compliant?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? I guess I have a question. I just want to think through with you. We've had a lot of projects come through from Tacoma, and most of them were enlargements to existing homes that added a great deal of space. And I'm just wondering, did this client not want to add to the rear of the house in a manner that would have, doubled the size of the property or the house within the guidelines of the Tacoma Park Historic District?
Well, I was brought into this project pretty late. It was basically after the owners basically started construction, and I don't even have a proper fix on what building permits they got for this or not. So it's not even in my purview. I'm not even thinking of that. I suggested to the owners, and they're basically developers, although I've heard conflicting stories that they're going to renovate it and keep it in their families, and also that they're going to basically flip it. So I don't even know where they're going with that, and I'm not really interested in what they're doing. I suggested that we start over because I thought that they were grossly not giving this property the proper design time. Actually, I suggested some changes, just minor changes that would have made it a much more attractive property, up to basically redesigning the entire project. That was rejected because they didn't want to spend any more money on it, which I thought was odd, because I told them I thought they could probably almost double the value of this house if they did a proper design and rear addition. Because the current layout is just, it's not a desirable layout, let's put it that way, for any family that I know of. I mean, there's bedrooms right off the living room. I mean, it's just an odd layout. So anyway, I suggested we redo it from beginning, just start over and do a proper design, and that was rejected.
Thank you.
So I'm just trying to get this thing through in the most properly historic fashion, and then I'm going to wash my hands of it because I don't think they're interested in doing anything, in a proper way. Quite frankly,
Thank you.
they just want to flip it.
Okay, any more, if there's no more questions, then do we have a motion to approve this?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll make a motion to approve HOP number 989087. Sorry, excuse me. HOP 989539 at 19 Montgomery Avenue, Tacoma Park, as stated by staff and the Historic District Guidelines.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this one is approved. And I would just like to say that this is the second time this applicant, not the owner of the property, has been before the HPC on a property that work was started before the proper approvals were obtained. And we do not want to see this applicant before us again with the same condition. He has experience now. He knows better. So thank you, Mr. Vitullo, very much for your effort and time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Bye.
Okay, on to the next case, which will be case number 1I2, number 2, at 34 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Does staff have a report?
Yeah, we have a brief staff report for the HOP at 34 West Kirk Street in Chevy Chase Village. This is a contributing resource constructed circa 1915. It's reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior's standards, and the Chevy Chase Village Historic District Design Guidelines. So the applicant, this application actually identified 3 pieces of work, but only 2 were subject to HPC review. And one is install a small fence to enclose the flower bed on either side of the front steps in front of the house, and install a wood handrail along the cheek wall at the front stairs. The third piece is to replace a beam at the front of the house to repair a sag in the roof. Staff finds that this is restorative work that will not be visible from the exterior and therefore does not need HPC approval. This is an example of the fence proposed for enclosing the front garden. Staff found that this was an appropriate wood fence that would not obstruct the house visually and was compatible with the design of the house and recommended approval. The larger issue for our discussion today is the proposal for a front railing. It will be installed inside of the sort of curved brick cheek walls here. You can see that the lowest step is 113 inches wide, and the opening at the top of the stairs is only 86 inches wide. The cheek wall is only 24 inches tall and has never had a railing. So the proposed railing will be wood and anchored into the porch surface and will match the curve of the wall. And based on staff's observations, the cheek wall appears to be a historic feature. Front stairs are not anything that's included in Sanborn maps, and our own historic photographs don't include a photo that's old enough to indicate whether or not this feature is as constructed. This is the plan that was submitted for the proposed railing. So staff finds that a metal railing aesthetically would be preferable and would be more compatible because its thinner members would be less obtrusive to the brick wall. This staff finds that the railing should be reviewed under moderate scrutiny. Again, the question with moderate scrutiny are issues of masking, scale, and compatibility to preserve the integrity of the resource. And alterations should be designed so that the structure still contributes to the district, and the use of compatible new materials rather than original building materials should be permitted. And that's sort of the key phrase that led staff to find both that the dimensions of the proposed railing are appropriate, but also to find that the proposed railing will not impact historic materials, and the stained wood will match the house trim so it avoids introducing a new material on the building. And staff finds that a curving railing will not obscure the curve in the cheek wall. So staff recommends the HPC approve the HOP under 24A8B2-4, which is to eliminate a safety hazard, and not having a railing is something that has been indicated by the applicant as a challenge. D, and then standards 2 and 10, with the condition that the permit plans accurately reflect the curvature of the approved railing, and staff will review plans to ensure conformance with this HOP approval. And staff will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Barnes?
Perhaps I'm wrong, but I thought that while staff was amenable to approving a wood railing, staff did find that a metal railing was preferable because it would be more inobtrusive. Am I?
No, that's correct. But the applicant, again, staff made that finding and made that recommendation to the applicant as well. However, the proposal was for a wood railing, and so staff's analysis did focus on exactly what it was that was proposed in this HOP, and came to the conclusion that a wood railing was acceptable under the criteria identified.
Any other questions for staff? We have a speaker tonight for this case, Mr. Tom Dan. If you'd come forward, please, make sure the mic is on and introduce yourself and your address for the record.
My name's Tom Dan. I live at 34 West Kirk Street, and I own this house with my wife, Melissa.
Do you have any comments you'd like to?
No, I basically support the recommendation of the staff. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any commissioners have questions? Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. What led to your decision to use a wood railing system on the stairs versus a metal, in terms of the scale and appropriateness? There's, aside from the fence that you're introducing, the garden fence, there's really no other stylistic kind of railing or fencing that matches this. I find the wood railing inconsistent with the style of the house, and wanted to get your thoughts about wood versus metal.
Well, we thought about wood versus metal, and one of the issues was, the house has been lime washed white, so that from the standpoint of visual obtrusiveness, it seemed like you really couldn't have a white railing that just doesn't aesthetically seem the right way to do it, and so it would be a black railing, and that would probably stand out even more than the white railing that we're suggesting. The other is that if you look at other houses on our street, many of them have wood white railings, so it's very consistent with the neighborhood.
Is they have white wood railings with a curved masonry cheek wall?
My wife Melissa provided a number of photographs to staff. I don't know if those are available here, but.
Those weren't included in the report, but I can speak to those, Commissioner Haynes. In every instance where there's a wood handrail, it's a wood railing around the porch of the deck.
So you really don't have the same condition. You have masonry stairs with masonry cheek walls, so it's very different. I find that the design is cumbersome and would really detract from the elegance of the masonry stair and cheek walls. I think, I don't know if we're into the debating this, but I think a metal railing that is less, visually less impactful on the stairs is more appropriate.
Any other questions? Commissioner Burns?
Just to confirm, the railing is sought for safety, is that correct?
Absolutely. We have, my wife and I are getting on in age, but we also have many older friends who come, and it's very hazardous. I have to escort them down the steps.
I have a question.
Commissioner Pelletier.
This is Commissioner Pelletier. How does the railing interact with the wall at the top of like at the porch level? Is it freestanding, or does it tie back to the masonry? Like, what's keeping it up? Like, how is it?
I think the current proposal is that it would be attached to the surface of the steps and the porch.
So it would.
It
So
wouldn't
it's going to be
be
mounted to
tied
the
to
steps, but it's not going to
right.
interact with the masonry at all.
That's right.
I've spoken at length with the applicant's wife, and I can confirm that it will be anchored to the front porch floor.
But it'll be essentially in front of the
Correct.
masonry walls,
Yes.
thereby with the pickets and the rails visually really diminishing those cheek walls.
Right, but I believe the Commissioner Pelletier's question was how it was going to be attached and anchored.
Yeah,
and that's to the non-historic steps and the decking surface.
Okay, and so, yeah, I just wonder about the structural integrity of that without some kind of lateral tie back to the masonry, you know. And that's my question, is really how. And the other
I mean,
question.
that certainly we could address that.
Okay, that's fine. But my bigger question is really, you've got the 2-foot masonry wall when you get up to the level of the deck, and then these are going to kind of be another foot higher, and they're just going to end. So I'm kind of with Commissioner Haynes. I think I totally understand you're needing to put a railing in. I totally get that. But I kind of concur that because it's a strange condition and they're just kind of coming up, like it would sort of be different if they were going to come up and then you were going to do sort of white pickets across the top of the. But they're not doing that. But what I'm saying is that, like, because there's a lack of continuity, it would be nicer or just sort of less impactful visually if it was a smaller profile and a metal railing. So that's I know we're only asking questions
A metal railing would still go up above the level of.
It would. It's
2-foot
just
wall.
the white is it gets a little bulky because you've got the big posts at the bottom and the top. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think we're supposed to be only asking questions. But thank you.
This is Vice Chair Burdett. Going on with what Commissioner Pelletier started. Okay, so you get to, this is going to wrap up the stairs, provide a handrail, that's fine. It's dead ends at the top of the stairs. It doesn't move back along the front of the porch. And the porch is an existing condition, and you have this very low, how high up is that little cheek wall up at the top?
The cheek wall is about 2 feet high.
So it doesn't, I'm sitting here thinking about code for a drop-off that's over, like,
30 inches.
30 inches, other than it's a historic existing condition. That's it. I'm seeing, the staff is sitting there nodding their head that, yes, it's a historic condition, so therefore they get away with this. Okay. I would say that we're not supposed to be deliberating, but.
Correct. This is the time for questions, and then you can close the public hearing with the applicant and begin your deliberations.
Okay, why don't we do that? I think we need to talk a little bit. Okay, thank you, sir. We are going to close the public hearing and deliberate, and
Okay, thank you. I'll wait.
appreciate your patience. Are we closed?
No, sir.
Sir, you
Oh.
didn't,
Oh, so sorry, no. It was just, the commissioners have closed the public hearing and testimony, and now they will deliberate amongst themselves and then vote on your case. Please don't feel you have to leave. No. Sorry. You may begin deliberation.
okay, so
There's no need for
I
me
will
to tell you
start
that.
this. So I agree with Commissioner Haynes that the rail and the pickets, and it's all a little cluttered and bulky and blocking the view of a very elegant and spare cheek wall going up. And I appreciate the need for it, and I appreciate that what is being proposed is removable in the future. But I think it should be a very plain, simple, minimalist handrail, wood or metal, but wood with no pickets, with no more wood than is absolutely necessary to hold that thing up. Would anybody else like to weigh in?
Yes. I agree that it should be more minimalist. I think metal is your best bet to keep it visually uncluttered, and the scale of metal, I feel, is better suited to the architecture of the house. It should really serve its function as a handrail, but it should not detract from the stairs, particularly the masonry, the brick cheek walls. And I think it can be as simple as possible with vertical, could be 2x2 vertical posts with a very simple metal rail that is easily accommodating the curvature of the stairs also. I don't see how you're going to, unless you're doing a custom wood rail, which is very expensive. I imagine that rail is just going to go straight down and not follow the curve. But that's not my point. My point is really that metal is, I feel, a much better solution and less impactful of the architecture.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns?
This is a very handsome house, which the Dans have given a lot of time and attention to, and put a big addition on the back. And one of the things that's extremely appealing to me, and derives, I believe, from classical architecture, is the entry, which draws your eye up to the front door. As staff noted, the bottom step is much broader than the step at the top, so that your eye is drawn forward to the front door. What is proposed in terms of putting a picket fence up the cheek wall will obscure what is a very, very attractive feature of this house and makes it rather distinctive. I would suggest that a very simple metal railing, it doesn't have to be black, it could be a silver metal that would fade away. You've got a lime wash on the house, it would blend in, would be far more appropriate in that it would not obscure this very attractive feature. And the staff has made the argument, which I appreciate, that lenient scrutiny seems appropriate. I would say that this is a defining feature of the home and therefore deserves more attention. And I would encourage you to give serious thought to a most simple metal handrail, which would afford you the safety that you need for yourself, your wife, and your visitors, and would not obscure the very attractive cheek wall that draws people up to your welcoming front door.
Commissioner Pelletier, we heard from you.
I agree with everything that's been said.
Okay.
I just want to say I love this house, and you've done an awesome job with the house. It's beautiful. But I do think I just think the wood rail is going to look really chunky and awkward. And I think a black handrail, a super simple black handrail, it would go with the dark on your front door. it would kind of blend in with the darkness of your stairs, and it would sort of disappear. And like Commissioner Barnes said, it would just kind of, it wouldn't detract from this really lovely entry that you have on the house. Thank you.
My one last comment is as you've heard now from three, that the metal is preferred, and I would have to agree with that. And considering that you're trying to provide enough stability to support a person, an unstable person walking down the steps, and you're not kind of bracketing this thing very well, the metal rail will be stronger than the wood rail would be. So with that, I think I'm going to have to lean on staff a little bit. The proposal is we approve it with your condition. And the condition is that better drawings are provided about the rail. The drawings that were submitted speak to wood. We have discussed metal, but short of telling them, I'm just wondering if we can approve this with the condition and you guys handle this on the staff side.
I mean, you certainly can. Now, again, there are two parts to this hop. So regardless of the handrail, there is another piece of this that needs a determination. Having said that, the condition that staff made can certainly be altered or rejected by the commissioners. It can be modified. You may disagree with staff's findings and go so far as to recommend denial of a wood rail, but condition approval on the hop that a metal rail could be approved at the staff level. But again, the application is for a wood handrail, and staff's recommendation under the provisions noted is to approve that railing. So it's up to the commissioners if they want to bring something different forward.
Commissioner Barnes?
I think that you've heard commissioners talk about the possible use of wood railing, but without the pickets. Mm-hmm. And then there was the issue as to how this would be anchored to provide the kind of stability that is required. I haven't heard anyone raise any question about putting a small fence around the garden that immediately fronts the house. Mm-hmm. And I think if you have that and then you're proposing a picket railing going up the front steps, you are into serious picket overload. But I think that we could propose that the railing be modified to be as simple as possible so as not to detract from the cheek wall, which is a distinctive feature, and leave the detailing to staff. My preference is definitely for metal, but
I think that is the type of condition that we could find enforceable on our end. That's often the challenge with delegating determinations of compatibility to staff, is then we're substituting our judgment for your bodies, which is why we're here to serve you, not the other way around. So, just so long as the condition is clear enough that we're prepared to defend that should that need arise.
Okay, so this case before us, the recommendation before us is to approve this hop, and the hop is two parts, which is a fence installation, which we haven't discussed, but they recommend we approve it, and this railing installation. So I need a motion from somebody to approve this hop without the condition, but with a friendly amendment to the condition. Ms. Ballow.
This is Rebecca Ballow. You don't need to friendly amendment the condition. You only friendly amendment your own motion. So again, you can wipe the slate clean. Again, you can move to approve everything. You can move to approve subject to the staff condition. You can move to approve subject to your own conditions, supported by your facts and findings that have come through in the deliberation at this hearing, or you can move to deny. Those are the options that you have before you, so long as the motion, again, is supported by the findings, and you get a second and a vote out, and we're here to aid you if you have any questions while you're going through it.
Thank you. I see no reason not to vote on this hop and move it forward, but whoever makes the motion can deal with the condition in a way that they would get the vote. Let me put it that way. Commissioner Haynes. Or Commissioner Barnes, whichever one of you wants to do this.
I will make a motion to approve HOP 987580 at 34 West Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, with the condition that the proposed wood railing at the front steps be designed and converted to a metal railing, and that the low garden fence across the front be approved as submitted.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second, or do I hear a friendly amendment?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment. Can I do that?
Believe so, yes.
It has to be seconded, and
Oh.
then someone can make a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Can I second and friendly amendment?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I'd like to second with a friendly amendment that the final drawings with anchoring details and curvature of the railing be submitted to staff for their review and approval.
Commissioner Haynes, do you accept this friendly amendment?
I accept.
We can then all vote. All who are in favor of this motion with the condition and the friendly amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And you can speak with staff. They will walk you through what has to happen. Yeah. All right, on to the next hop we're hearing tonight. This is case number 1L at 28 Pine Avenue, Tacoma Park. Does staff have a report for this one?
Yes, we do. Thank you. So as noted, this is 28 Pine Avenue, Tacoma Park, an outstanding resource within the Tacoma Park Historic District, a craftsman-style circa 1910s house. The proposal is for installation of 19 roof-mounted solar panels on the south or right roof slope of the historic house. The applicable guidelines are Montgomery County Code, Chapter 24A8, Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Commission's solar policy. The subject property, again, is a 1910s one-story craftsman-style outstanding resource. There is an original attached basement-level garage at the front of the house. The garage is constructed from rusticated concrete block matching the house's foundation and exposed basement at the south or right side, as well as the south or right side chimney. And I have a couple of photographs just showing the rusticated block. This is looking at the house directly from the front, and this is from the right or south side. The property has a shallow rear yard, which is moderately forested, making a ground-mounted solar array at the rear of the house infeasible. Aside from the original attached basement-level garage at the front of the property, there are also no accessory buildings or additions with adequate roof area to accommodate the proposed solar panels. Additionally, because the historic house is oriented toward the west and it is a one-story house with a simple front gable roof, the proposed panels would be at least partially visible from the public right-of-way of Pine Avenue on either the north, left, or south, right roof slope. So again, this image was on the first slide, but the property boundaries are outlined in red here and just showing, so the front here to your left or the west, and not much room here at the rear or anywhere else, really. And this is a photograph looking at the roof or the house from the left side, from the north. And as we can see, as noted in my presentation, you will be able to see the panels, at least partially, on either the north slope or the south slope. Again, staff's comments here are related to the character-defining features, the foundation, the rusticated stone block, the chimney, which you don't experience much, if at all, from the left side. So, as I was just discussing, the south right side of the historic house is the most visible from the public right-of-way, and it is where the property's significant character-defining features, namely the rusticated stone block, are experienced. However, staff acknowledges that installing all proposed solar panels on the north or the left roof slope would be inefficient, and the most feasible location is on the south or right roof slope. And again, just showing the character-defining features from multiple vantage points here. This is on the sidewalk adjacent to the property, and this is from the corner opposite. And experiencing the character-defining features from the front, even across the street, and again, not much at all from the left. Accordingly, staff recommends the following condition of approval, thus allowing solar panel installation on the south or right roof slope, ensuring efficiency while minimizing their visibility from the public right-of-way and their impact on the historic house's character-defining chimney. The condition would read as follows: the proposed solar panels will not extend in front of the chimney on the south or right roof slope. The panels that are proposed forward of the chimney can be moved to the north or left roof slope with final review and approval delegated to staff. And this is based upon the submitted plan with the red X's indicating staff's recommendation. Those panels would be either removed or perhaps moved to the north slope. With this condition, staff finds that the applicant's proposal will not remove or alter character-defining materials, features, or spaces of the property in accordance with the guidelines and standards 2 and 9. Further, the proposed solar panels could be removed in the future, leaving the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment unimpaired per standard 10. Staff also finds the modified proposal consistent with the Commission's solar policy, which states, and I will summarize here, but referencing Chapter 24A 8B6 of the County Code, which establishes a balancing test for approval of a HOP where there is an apparent conflict between the desired impact on the resource and the public benefit. The Commission's position is that solar panels may be installed on all roof elevations of historic sites or resources located within a district, provided the identified preferred locations. This would be the rear of the property, building additions, accessory structures, or ground-mounted arrays is not feasible due to resource orientation or other site limitations, and the roof is not either architecturally significant or a slate or tile roof unless it can be demonstrated that the solar array will be installed without damaging roof. And also, of course, that a permit is required. So per this policy, staff finds the modified proposal to be consistent with Chapter 24A 8B6, and staff recommends approval with the one condition previously noted. Again, the solar panels will not extend in front of the chimney on the right roof slope. The panels that are proposed forward of the chimney can be moved to the left roof slope with final review and approval delegated to staff. And with that, I'll take any questions you have for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Barnes, you have a question for staff.
This is an outstanding resource, as you've made clear during your presentation. Are the abutting and confronting properties contributing, or are there other outstanding resources, could you say?
I can't recall enough to state that with any confidence, but my recollection is that the resources on either side are contributing.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll move on to our speakers, our visiting speakers, who are both remote tonight, correct? Jonathan Krill and Nicholas Luziani, if I'm saying that correct. If you both are on, oh, you're both on tonight. How many minutes do they get? 5 minutes total. So you may divvy up your time any way you like. Just identify yourself, whoever is speaking first, and your address and your relationship to this project. 7 minutes. I'm sorry, 7 minutes combined. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners. I'm going to start. My name is Nicholas Luciani. I am the owner with my wife, Najma Sheikh, of 28 Pine Avenue. And I come before you today really to seek the approval of the original proposal without any conditions. I'm going to give a little bit of the context, and John's going to go into some of the technical specifications here. First of all, just in terms of context, I apologize I couldn't be there in person. I'm solo parenting this week, and I've got 2 little kids that got pizza tonight, so they're very excited that I'm before you. So we've been in Tacoma Park for almost 10 years now. We purchased this home in 2015, knowing full well this was in the historic district. Both Nejma and myself are big proponents of preservation in the district. And over the years, we've done a tremendous amount of work, I think, with Michael Kine's help to bring this outstanding resource into an even better place. We've like for like replaced the roof that was damaged. We put some paint all around the house, including those rusticated concrete blocks. We've done some work to protect the chimney. That's been a matter of discussion. And so we believe in this and want to keep the house in its best possible shape. We're also big believers in sustainability, and really there's not going to be a future for preservation if we continue on our path around climate emissions. And so my wife and I are doing everything we can possibly do as individuals and as part of the community to find renewable sources of energy, which, by the way, can also save us some money to have some money set aside to invest in the house and preserve its character. And so that's the reason why we wanted to bring solar panels into the house, onto the house, to decrease our fossil fuel demands, to increase some resources for preserving the house and other needs, and also just to provide, we think, a service in the public welfare in terms of increasing production of renewable energy for our county. And so with regard to the 2020 county guidelines and HPC policy guidance 2001, I think Michael pointed out quite clearly, on the side of conserving the historical character and architectural significance, the roof itself is not architecturally significant. I think what we're really talking about is visibility to the chimney, and in particular the rusticated concrete block. On this particular point, I would just reiterate here, I took a couple pictures, I think Michael also. When you're looking at this from the street on all angles, especially from this angle, you'll see very little of the solar panels themselves, which, by the way, match the color of the roof, as originally proposed. They're only 3 inches deep, and they're sitting back, I think, 3 feet from the ridge of the roof. That's much further back than I think some of my neighbors have them. And here's probably the best image that you would see. There might be some minor obstruction of part of the base of that chimney, but not even the rusticated concrete block itself. Imagine 3 inches up. It's maybe, at this angle, a very slight obstruction of view to that black material that's abutting up into the chimney. So really, as proposed, I think it does maintain all visible enjoyment of these rusticated concrete block chimney. And then finally, on the other side, in terms of feasibility, one possibility that staff proposed was to put some the solar panels on the other side of the roof. John will go into detail about why that's not feasible for us. But the big picture here is we would lose about 20% of the savings in terms of carbon emissions and financial savings by doing so. and that just doesn't make the project as feasible anymore. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to John now to go into some of the technical specifications. And John?
Sure, I've got you here. So I think everybody agrees the south is the most ideal side. We have
Mr. Carrillo, you need to identify yourself and why you're speaking here tonight.
Absolutely. So my name is Jonathan Krill. I work for Solar Energy World. We've been contracted with Mr. Luciani to do solar for his house. And I'm just here to back up, the technical end of why we're asking for what we're asking for.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So you can see we've left space around the chimney here. This is for serviceability. I think also it'll give, the view of the chimney that you're looking for. There are 3-foot setbacks all around here, so you're not really going to see it from the edge. And I think just the pictures that you've already shown have shown that there's not that much visibility of the roof in general from the street. But a couple of the things that we went into here, the production on the system goes down, obviously, if you put things on the north side, which are not as efficient. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is in order to provide solar panels on the roof, we have had to do a knee wall or provide a knee wall for structural support under this half of the roof. If we move panels to the other half of the roof, requires a second knee wall, which is a financial impact. I don't know if you got the last package I had that showed the other photos, or I could share my screen. This is the technical. So this is the production report. I know staff had mentioned that the darker area was here with the 3 panels that we're talking about, or the few panels. I'd like to point out that the brightest yellow is 90% and basically pure black is 70%. So it's not a big difference between the colors here. They're just always meant to contrast fully. So the production here, if we make that bigger, it's about 7,700 kilowatt hours a year. If we move to the next frame, the proposed was to move 3 panels to the rear, and this was sort of the proposed by staff design. We can move to the next one. The output here is about 6,000, so we are losing a significant amount of output. So that impacts, carbon offset, as we've said. It impacts the financials in terms of bill savings, as well as SREC income. I believe you are probably aware of the significant impact of solar renewable energy credit income, being on the DC Pepco feeder. So the final slide that I had there, if we can move on, just kind of lays that out. So, with the original 19-panel layout, the first line there, we have the output, the savings on electrical bill per year, the SREC income. And this is the total benefit on the right. And if we multiply that by 30 years, because we are, providing a 30-year warranty on this product, that's how long this product does last, it's a significant financial impact.
Thank you, Mr. Krill.
Sure.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Haynes?
In the diagram that shows the 3 panels on the north side, yes, thank you. Could those be located on the south side, say on the top row going towards the front? And does that gain you back the full capacity of those panels?
Potentially, yes. The only thing that I know, this document was prepared by staff, correct? For this slide here, the proposed layout?
No, I think this slide was included in your submission, and if I recall correctly, you said this was produced by your engineer.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if we move these three over, that could help. We'd have mixed orientation there though, which I don't know if you're concerned about the visual impact of the mixed orientation. The reason we had everything in what I'll call portrait orientation versus landscape is to keep everything as clean and neat as possible, because that is something we do take into account.
Yeah, it would seem that from the ground, you're not going to be able to tell the visual orientation. It's going to look, I don't know, I could be wrong. I'd be interested to know what the other commissioners think, but from the ground, I don't think you're going to see that orientation as significantly as you would if you're in an airplane flying over. In my mind, that is not as critical, the orientation, if those three panels, sorry, I'm getting into debating again, but anyways, I would consider those three panels on the south side.
This is Vice Chair Burdett. I do have a question, and it's about this slide and the orientation. So the bottom two rows are horizontal, and then the top row is portrait, but is it possible to fit the top rows horizontally and actually get two rows in that space where there's just the one vertical row? It looks to me like there's room there to do that. And at that point, you would be able to then put, not only, you'd be able to put the entire number of panels almost on the one side and not go out over the porch roof. Is that doable?
Well, what I'll say here is there's a county requirement for a 3-foot setback from the ridge of the roof, which is, the top line. We can't build within 3 feet of that top ridge line. So while it may look like there's room there, there is a required setback that we're staying without. And the panels are not twice as long as they are wide. So we can only fit one row in what I'll call landscape orientation there.
Thank you. Any more questions for the applicant? Yes? No? Okay, if we have no more questions, then we can deliberate? Yes? Okay, so we're going to close the record and deliberate.
This is Rebecca Ballo with the staff. I looked up information in relation to Commissioner Barnes's question earlier about outstanding resources in proximity to this one. So there are 3. There's 19 pine, 27 pine, and 30 pine. There are 2 others at 10 and 11 pine, but they're really quite a bit further up the block. So we have, including this one, a little collection of 4 outstanding resources.
And you said one of those was 27 pine.
Yes, we have 19 pine, 27 pine, 28 pine, this one, and then its neighbor, 30 pine.
So the neighbors to the north and south are both outstanding.
And one
There's across the
there's
street.
2 across the street. So 27 pine and 19 pine are across the street, and then 30 pine is right adjacent.
And 28.
And 28 is the subject property. So there's 28, there's 30 to the south, and then across the street is 27, and then 19 is a little bit up.
I thought 23 was the.
Thank you.
I can share out my screen. I think I can share out my screen.
Well, on 1923 is what it says
No.
on the.
19, 23, 19, 27, 28, and 30.
That's
Yeah.
the year.
No,
Thank
this
you.
is the number.
No, that's the year it was built.
Do you want me to share out my screen and show you the map?
I trust you.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're all right there in proximity to each other.
I think I understand what you're asking, Commissioner Pelletier, and just to clarify, the address of this property is 28 Pine. So this is one of the four that Rebecca mentioned. The neighbor directly to the south at 30 Pine is outstanding, and then 2 across the street, almost directly across the street, are outstanding.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so commissioners, we are going to deliberate. Would anybody like to start?
I'll start.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Yeah, I drove by here. I live nearby, and I drove by here on the way over here tonight. And the roof is very hard to see. I think you turn the corner off of Elm, and I mean, you really have to be staring at the roof to even notice the roof, because it's kind of, it sits high up, and you're heading up a hill, and you can see more of the north side of the roof than you can of the south side of the roof. So, in my opinion, the original proposal is acceptable to me, based on just driving by the house and seeing what it's going to look like. And I appreciate the 20% loss that you're going to that's going to impact you if you have to remove panels and move panels around, and putting them on the north side. I just know from my own research that that's not terribly effective. So I don't, as the application is, without any conditions, I could approve this. Thank you.
Any other commissioners like to comment?
Sure. I'll
Commissioner
chime in.
Haynes?
Can we turn back to some of the street views, particularly from views of the south? I mean, I essentially agree that the roof, that one, that's good. This kind of goes back to my argument that the alternate scheme where we have combination of landscape and portrait orientation, I think from this view, because of the perspective angle, it's really, it's going to be hard to decipher those orientations. And so I am more in favor of this layout with taking the 3 panels on the north and applying them to the top row, assuming we can meet the 3-foot setback. I feel that maximizes the efficiency of the system, but at the same time will really meet the goals of the commission in, preserving the street front and the views from the street.
Commissioner Barnes?
I find this kind of a case very difficult because we would like very much, and we have a solar panel policy, to be as supportive as possible of people's desire to be responsible when it comes to the use of resources. We, as a commission, also have a responsibility vis-a-vis historic districts. And one of the reasons that prompted my question was the context in which this outstanding resource sets, because the visibility, albeit limited, of solar panels has an impact on other resources immediately adjacent to or confronting this property. So I have been inclined to find that the staff's proposal is, with the condition that staff has proposed, is something I could support. Looking again at the drawing and looking again at this picture before us now, the question I have is there a way that if one eliminated the 2 projecting panels that are in the staff report, the concern is, from this vantage point, visibility and also the proximity of the character-defining chimney. And so if there were a way that that we could approve this, but without the the 3 panels in the staff report that were recommended, that the lower ones, the 3 X's where staff had recommended that those be removed, I would be in favor of that. And leaving the top 2. Now, I don't know whether that does enough to make this an economically attractive proposal or not.
This is Vice Chair Burdett, and I'll close up with this. I agree with Commissioner Haynes and Commissioner Barnes, and in the interest of playing with blocks that I used to love to do as a kid, I would say that what I would like with this, to see with this, is that the 2 panels that are on the porch roof be pushed back, be moved back. And if one of them, it will probably only be one, could be placed horizontally over the chimney, if that's permitted, I think you would get that one in there and then maybe be short 1 panel. I agree with Commissioner Haynes that I think the orientation is not going to be that relevant or visible on this roof from the vantage point and how you come down the street. But the 2 panels that are on the porch roof, particularly the front one, I think will be very visible as you're walking past. And I say that knowing that a great many houses in Tacoma Park have solar panels. So that would be my recommendation, that the applicant work with staff to see if there is some way to work with this layout so that they do not lose 5, but perhaps lose only 2, or only 2, I think would be it. We have a hop here to vote on. Get back to that, because it is approve it with a condition, and the condition is that the solar panels will not extend in front of the chimney on the south right roof slope. The panels that are proposed forward of the chimney can be moved to the north, the left roof slope, with final review and approval delegated to staff. I would recommend that we revise that condition a bit so that 5 panels are not removed, but possibly 2 or 3. What do my fellow commissioners think about that? Commissioner Pelletier.
I would like the condition to read that the panels shouldn't, I think it's sort of a combination of what everybody's comments are, that if they could reposition the panels, in the portrait and what's the other one? Landscape, the way that other diagram shows. Like if we could say something like they need to be positioned so that none are on the porch roof, or that like we just sort of give them an area where they're allowed to put the panels and let them propose the layout. And if they can get all the panels into that area, great.
So the condition can read that no panels should be put on the porch roof, but the orientation and placement for the rest of the roof can be worked out with staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion? Commissioner Pelletier,
I'll
it's your
give
turn.
it a go. Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we approve this HOP 9898988, right? With one condition, that no solar panels get located on the front porch roof, and the orientation of the panels and positioning of the panels be reviewed and approved by staff.
Staff is nodding their head that they think that's okay. Okay. Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor of Commissioner Pelletier's motion with the condition, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And this is approved. So if the applicant will talk with staff, they will work with you on this, and you'll have an approved application pretty quickly. All right, moving on, we move to our preliminary consultation, which is case 2A at 12450 Old Columbia Pike, Silver Spring. That is master plan site number 34/010, the Conley House / Green Ridge. Does staff have a report?
Yes, just 1 second, Madam Chair. I want to pull up my staff report as well, just if there are any questions. So again, this is a preliminary consultation for the development of 12450 Old Columbia Pike in Silver Spring. It is within the environmental setting of the Conley House, also known as Green Ridge, which is a 1905 neoclassical house that was originally part of the 600-acre Conley family farm, which started in the 1860s and was active until I think really the 1960s. In 1990, the County Council established an 8.2-acre environmental setting for the master plan under criteria 2A for its architectural significance, and that's the red polygon you see in this image. And the master plan amendment specifically excludes modern outbuildings from the environmental setting of the site. So the applicant has submitted their preliminary plan to the planning board, and this plan seeks approval from the planning board that their proposal is appropriate for the site under several enumerated criteria. And the reason we're here is the planning board has asked the HPC for comments to be presented at tomorrow morning's planning board meeting. So the applicant and I are gonna do this all over again tomorrow. The applicant has also submitted their natural resource inventory forest stand delineation, which is commonly known as an NRI FSD, which documents the natural features on the property to avoid negative impacts to sensitive and significant elements. And pretty much once the planning board approves the preliminary plan and the NRI FSD, it establishes the locations that certain elements can go or can't go, and those are relatively set. So the applicant would have to come back to the planning board. So by coming before the HPC tonight, and the comments that you provided gives the applicants a certain amount of certainty moving forward that what they're doing is on the right track. So again, as a master plan site, this is reviewed under Chapter 24A of County Code and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Additionally, this is part of the Fairland Master Plan, which was last updated in 1997 and identified 3 objectives for historic resources. One is that they highlight sites that are important to maintaining the character of the planning area. It protects and enhances the historical and architectural heritage for future residents, and it integrates historic sites into new and existing development. So the proposal is to develop the site as a church and will remove a large number of trees from the site, construct a 270-seat church sanctuary building, construct a 68-space parking lot along the north property boundary or northeastern property boundary. They will construct a retaining wall, and then they'll construct a multi-use bike path along Columbia Pike, and that's also included in the county's bicycle master plan. So without the shaded area, this is the southern site with the large building with the red roof is the one that's proposed for development. It is currently listed as vacant, although it looks somewhat active at this point. And the existing building is not historic, so that is not something that should concern us moving forward. I wanted to pull out this image a little bit to show you how what was 600 acres of farmland, or part of 600 acres of farmland, has been developed. There are religious properties to both the front and rear, the left and right of the subject property. Additionally, there are single-family houses and attached townhouses in the surrounding area, and the forested property the north is already been in for a site plan amendment that will allow it to be developed for additional housing and retail. So the character of the surrounding area has changed significantly over the years. For those of you who haven't been out to do a site visit, this is Old Columbia Pike looking at the site. This is, what you see is the significant house, and circled in red is the non-historic outbuilding that's on the subject property. Again, the development is not going to occur on the property where the historic house is. This is looking into the subject property towards the rear. Again, there are a large number of trees that are all flagged for removal. And this is looking down the existing driveway, and then again at the fence line looking into the property. So this is the plan that's submitted to the planning department. Again, you see the church building located in the upper portion of the site, the driveway and parking lot along the northern property line, and then 3.77 acres of the 4.1 acres are going to be a dedicated conservation easement. There's a pond and a stream. There's an existing stormwater management easement, and then there's an identified area of forest conservation on there as well. Because this is a historic site, for their their NRI FSD, trees greater than 1 inch diameter breast height had to be cataloged for removal. So even though the HPC typically requires a 6-inch threshold, the NRI is much more restrictive, and they have identified 162 trees greater than 1 inch diameter breast height will be removed. Most of these trees abut Old Columbia Pike, so they're along the road, and historic aerial photographs show that these trees have been planted since 1979 and are not part of the historic character of the master plan site. What you see below is actually a 1951 aerial photograph of the site, and you can see that there are some trees around the existing pond, but there are no trees along Old Columbia Pike, and there are some trees in front of the historic house, but otherwise you're looking at fields for farming. This is the plan for the parking lot. The retaining wall will go along the upper property line here. You see the polygon for the proposed church building. We have not seen any architectural concepts yet, and those haven't been worked on at all, to my knowledge. So staff request HPC feedback on the following elements of the proposal. The proposed site layout, including the 12,500 square foot church building, the 68 parking space parking lot, the removal of 162 trees, the retaining wall along the northern property boundary, and also any recommended measures to mitigate impacts on the Conley House. And staff additionally notes that the applicant will return to the HPC for the required HOP, and staff has already recommended a preliminary plan once architectural plans have been developed early in that stage, so the HPC is afforded an opportunity to weigh in. And I will answer any questions that you have for me at this time.
Commissioner Barnes, you have questions?
I have had a little trouble understanding all of what is proposed. And when I look at this picture, I see a very thin red or orange line, which looks to me to be the property line between what is proposed and what is the Conley or Evergreen house. Is this, you've mentioned that there's this 8.1 acre environmental setting for the house. Is this all still owned by the owner of the house?
No, the ownership was subdivided some time ago, I believe in the 90s.
Okay.
And they actually need their preliminary plan so they can go a step further, and the lot is then developable as a parcel. So there have been activities going on. We reviewed this yesterday with planning board staff to see if there were any actual complaints underway for the vehicles, and there are not. There have been some in the past. And I don't know that the property lines, which are those thin yellow lines, are actually inch perfect to the aerial photography. So that's where we do have, measured drawings that were submitted in the application that do show the outlines of some of those elements.
I was just trying to have a better understanding of the retaining wall and then the parking lot and the relationship to what is, from my perspective, what is of our concern,
Right.
which is the historic property. And that's why I had focused on that thin little yellowy orange line, trying to figure out if that's exactly or more or less where this
So that is more or less where it will be, and the height of the retaining wall varies from approximately 2 to 3 feet throughout. So, that's certainly aside from the fact that there will be a church building and however tall it is, that will be the most significant feature actually facing the historic house.
And there is a slight grade drop.
Yes, from the road, it dips in the middle and then it rises towards the rear. And then from the Connolly house, this property is all below it. The Connolly house is built on the bluff.
And there one shot you showed us looking sort of with the Connolly house and a little bit of the roof, this one, which I think gives kind of an indication because of the church proposal being at the back of the property. So that also, to me, sends a signal about height.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Commissioner Haynes?
Yes, the trees that were tagged for removal, I assume that is along the, I guess that's the north edge of the property, where the proposed parking is going to go?
I mean, so if you look at this, most of them are in that, the upper right corner. So near where the proposed new apron will go, you can see along that line. So here's the existing apron, and the new apron will go here. So yes, a number of those trees are being removed because you need access to the site, and the parking lot really can go nowhere else. But there are a number of them that are being removed along the property line here, which also are going to be in that conservation area. But they also need to make space for what's identified here as a side path, but that's the bicycle path.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Yeah, is the conservation area, it's called different things, forest retention area, is that proposed or is that a current easement?
I believe that's a current easement on the property.
Okay, because the report kind of
The
implies
language,
that that's
yeah,
going to be.
the language was inarticulate in the staff report.
Okay, so it is an existing easement that they cannot build in?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I had another question. Is there any requirement for them to put back trees to kind of make up for the ones that they take down?
So the NRI is more of a record of what's there and identifying the limits. So certainly the HPC could identify additional planting requirements. There are, again, there are some grade changes that you can see going on in this just north of the conservation easement line at the top of the screen. So there are, I think, some limited options, but there are certainly options for some replanting. And that's something that the HPC could require as part of the AHAB approval.
But that planting would be on their own property, right?
Correct.
Okay. We couldn't have them plant on the neighbor's property.
No, not on their neighbor's property. But
Okay.
within the, I mean, if they're planting native species within the conservation easement area, that would be something that they were allowed to do.
Okay, thanks.
Kind of following up on Commissioner Pelletier's comments. So there's a retaining wall between the parking lot and the property line next to the Conley House.
Right, it's along here, and it's new segmented concrete block retaining wall
Okay.
right there.
And the distance from that wall to the property line is not enough to plant anything on their side?
I mean, that would be a question for the applicant.
Okay. And the owner of the Conley House property is here or not?
No, it's just for the applicants, because these are not in common ownership anymore.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have, and if there are no more, then we will move on to the applicants. And we have 3 here. Yes, we do. So this is David McKee, German Pineda, and Jerry Warder, and I apologize if I butchered a name there. And please, you're coming up to speak. Make sure your mic is on. Introduce yourselves and your address and your relationship to this project. And how many minutes do they have? 7, yes. Big hand motions for me, thank you. So please go ahead you have 7 minutes between the two of you, thank you.
Okay, Dave McKee, Benning Associates, I'm the land planner for the project. With me is Jerry Warder, he's the project manager. Rena Pineda is in the audience. German is not here tonight, but she's representing the church, as are we. We don't really have a presentation. We're here to answer questions for the most part. I could address some of the things I heard if you'd like. We are going to plant about 25, 26 trees as mitigation for some of the removal as part of the Forest Conservation Plan. So that's on our Forest Conservation Plan currently. Those will be 3-inch trees spread around the property, probably in the conservation easement area, which is not entirely forested currently. Most of the trees that are being removed or that were identified for the HPC and for the FCP are Bradford pear, very dense. Yeah, so enough said there, I guess. But yeah, non-native, invasive, very aggressive, and they're just taking over the property, so the more we remove, the better, I think. The stream buffer conservation area is actually not existing. That's part of the proposal to develop the property, is to put that into conservation. That's a stream buffer. There is a stream that kind of starts on the property where the pipe outfalls. So that's one of the reasons, really what drives the layout of this plan is the stream buffer and the fact that we can't develop any part of that part of the property. So we're squeezed up to the northeast side of the property for that reason. Really, that's it. We're here to answer questions and hear what you have to say tonight.
Mr. Warder, do you have any comments or presentation?
No, I would certainly respond to any questions of the board. I've been coordinating this project since it started a few years ago.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicants? Commissioner Burns.
I have a couple of questions. One, I want to, as I indicated to staff, our concern here is largely about the historic property, and I wanted to try and have a better understanding of how far back that house is from the property line. And I believe I have just understood that the proposed retaining wall is basically at about the property line. So I wanted to clarify that. And then I have a question. Obviously, you've given some thought to the church structure, since I notice on this plan it says 2 levels, 270 seating capacity. And I wanted to hear if you could say anything at all about that, which once again would have an impact on the historic resource.
Yeah, well, I would like to state, I mean, I saw the 12,000 square feet earlier mentioned, but it's actually 2 stories, one that's subgrade and another one on top, so it's about 6,000 some odd square feet of ground area.
And you're saying that it's partially subgrade?
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you have a sense of the overall height? And I understand
Probably not at
that
this
I'm
point. I think that would
asking
be
for
the
a
next
bit of a
time when we come back to you.
Yeah,
We'll have that information.
architecturally, they're into that right now, but yes, I really can't comment on that at this time.
Thank you.
So the retaining wall is on the plan. We have maybe a 10-foot buffer strip between the parking lot and the property line. The wall isn't in a fixed location right now. It's showing maybe 5 feet off of the property line. It's not a very tall wall, and also it wouldn't be seen from the historic property because we're dropping down.
Right.
And so it's retaining the higher ground on the historic side of the wall.
But there would be enough space behind the wall to permit some planting.
Yes. there would be,
To buffer the historic
yes.
house.
Some space, yeah.
No Bradford pears.
Correct, yeah.
And no
Absolutely not.
massive trees, because you don't want to destroy
Some
a
screening
newly
trees,
built
perhaps,
retaining wall, but certain things could go in.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
Just sort of continuing that conversation, would it be possible to pull the parking, towards the easement another 5 feet or so such that you'd have closer to 8 feet between the property line and the retaining wall, is one comment. And then the design of the parking, while I'm not necessarily opposed to that linear configuration, could you maybe bend the portion closest to Columbia Pike to sort of follow the curvature of the easement? Again, would allow more tree area perhaps in that corner to provide some additional green buffer between your church site and the historic property.
Perhaps. We can certainly look at that. We are kind of squeezed in there. You can see the contour lines on the low side of the parking lot. We've got fill. We're dropping back down to grade there to match the grades at the easement line. So we could look at the elevations and see if there was a possibility of moving that. It might end up requiring a retaining wall that's taller than what we have right now, or perhaps a wall on the low side, to try to work something out. But it's something we can look at.
Thank you.
This is Vice Chair Burdett. And have you approached your neighbors who own the historic property? Are they, I assume they're aware of what's going on?
Well, they sold the Church D property.
Oh, they sold the property
Yes.
to the church. Okay, so they do know what's going on.
That's right.
I don't have any more comments or questions. So at this point, we would start our deliberations. So, commissioners, it's only 4 of us. Would somebody like to start off?
Sure. Commissioner Haynes, I'll be happy to start. Overall, I think the site strategy makes sense to me, recognizing that there is quite a significant grade difference between the Connolly House and the church, roughly about 15 feet or so. So I feel from the perspective of the Connolly House, this would have a relatively low impact visually from the Connolly property. I think the church building itself would probably only fit in the back of the lot, and it's far from the old Columbia Pike Street, and therefore, appropriately placed so as not to have an impact along Columbia Pike and the conservation easement. So I'm generally in support of the layout. I'd like to see the parking, as I mentioned, to provide more of a planting buffer along the retaining wall. If we can pull the parking towards, I know you're cutting into an embankment there a little bit, but if that could be pulled a little bit more so we have a better planting dimension, 7 feet, I think would be better. And then again, I don't mind the straight linear parking layout if it's possible and reasonable to maybe bend the lower part. I think just is a little bit nicer configuration in terms of allowing some more trees to be preserved in that corner of the property where you enter the property. But overall, I think I support the concepts of your plan.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Haynes. I meant to ask this question. What's the paving? Is it asphalt? Is it pervious? Is it impervious?
I believe we do have some pervious pavement for the
So
parking
there-
space. Some of that, yes, but
Some
it's
of it is
asphalt for the most
pervious.
part, but there will
Okay.
be some pervious, yeah.
And how, I'm sorry, I missed these questions during the question and answer period. How wide is the parking, like from space, is it 60 feet?
60 feet.
It's 60 feet,
Yeah.
okay. I think, yeah, I agree with Commissioner Haynes. I think you've done the best with what you've got. Yeah, my only concern is that there's some kind of a planting buffer between the two properties, and I think we need to know more about the church as far as its height and what you're going to be able to see from the historic property. But with some modifications to get a little more planting area in between the parking and the adjacent property, I could support this. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns.
I think the comments you've heard about planting to create a buffer between this property and the historic property is very important. I would encourage you, since you have a long linear parking lot, to also consider the occasional shade-providing tree there for people who are going back and forth. I think that the height of the church is going to be a critical element, and I would associate myself with Commissioner Haynes' suggestion that if there is a way of perhaps drawing on the existing apron and curving a little bit, I think that would be a very positive feature rather than having it all be rectilinear. I understand that there are site constraints, but I mentioned that as I think a possibility if there's a way of doing that. But for me, what will be very important when you come for a historic area work permit, when you come back for a preliminary consultation or actually for the work permit, is the attention that you give to providing some buffering to the historic house, and that the new church, which is new, will also be not overwhelming to that property. And there you have a certain advantage because of the grade level, but it will also require a certain thoughtfulness in the design. Thank you.
And I'll go last, Vice Chair Burdett. I agree with the other commissioners, but I really do think you've done a good job with what you've got. The church is not a very large church at 270 seats compared to the two much, much larger churches immediately adjacent. And I think this great change between the historic property down to your property means that it's going to be fairly easy to do some planting to buffer between the two properties if you work with them. I think you can probably get away with some shrubbery that would you would probably benefit more than they would if you do something like azaleas or rhododendrons or whatever will grow at that location. And I certainly do support removing all those Bradford pears. And I agree with Commissioner Haynes about arcing that parking lot a little bit. Site planners are engineers, and they like to think in straight lines. and sometimes a little bit of, it doesn't have to be a lot of a curve, but it'll be as appreciated by your parishioners as it would be by us. So yes, good luck tomorrow. I think you've heard that we do support this project. We're talking about some fairly minor changes, and we will be very interested in your church and what it's going to look like as viewed from the historic property. That will be the important part, and its height and its general appearance. So, yes.
Just wanted to note that Commissioner Clemens is still on the line.
I am so sorry, Commissioner Clemens. Please, if you'd like to have some, I am really sorry. I've just out of sight, out of mind. Go right ahead.
Madam Chair, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing that I would have said that hasn't already been said, except it would have been a lot phlegmier. Thank you.
That's it? Okay. All right.
Yep.
I think you've heard our comments, and good luck tomorrow in front of the planning board, you and the staff. And we look forward to seeing you again soon, we hope.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It's late. Our parking is about to run out, so let's move through this. I know.
I could stay till midnight.
All right. We have some minutes, Ms. Ballo. Okay. We have some minutes.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, we have the April 20th meeting minutes for your review.
Did anybody read them besides me? I read them, and I would like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes. Would somebody like to second my motion, who just sped read the minutes?
This is Commissioner Pelletier. I'd like to second the motion.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. Okay, Commissioner items. Do we have anything? No commission items tonight. Staff items, I understand there are 2 of them tonight.
Yes, 2 staff items. We have one at 7823 Overhill Road, Bethesda. This was hop number 976939, and the revision is for fenestration, alteration, and previously approved addition. And we also have a staff item at parcel 770 Brookville. This was hop number 867436. It was for the infill construction of 4 houses. And the alterations or revisions are to those previously approved houses. And chiefly, they are decorative revisions, minor revisions, and mainly done for code or drainage issues.
For the Overhill fenestration alterations, these are at the back of the house, correct?
Those are on the right elevation of the approved addition. On the ground floor, there was a bay window. That bay has been removed. They've replaced it with 2 casement windows. And then on the second floor, they relocated the sash windows so the first and second story windows stack.
And this is all on the addition?
All on the unbuilt but approved addition. So there's no change in the massing. It is purely fenestration.
Okay.
This has been a very popular house.
We will see it again for other minor code revisions.
So we need to make a motion to approve these.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to do it individually, or can we do it as a cluster, as a group? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the 2 staff items?
This is Commissioner Haynes. I'll make a motion to approve staff items at 7823 Overhill Road and parcel 770 Brookville for modifications as stated in the staff item.
Do I hear a second?
Is Commissioner
Commissioner
Pelletier?
Clements, I second.
Thank you.
I'll third.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And that is the end of our work this evening. I adjourn the meeting.